Hi, I'm Jeff Williams with InMobi, mobile in-app SSP and platform for digital advertising.
And I'm Jess Burns. I'm the head of global consumer engagement for Clinique, an Estée Lauder company.
All right, Jess, thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time in your morning.
I'm so excited about this.
Glad to be with you. So, want to start with you a little bit,
Sure.
Before we get into Estée Lauder and all the happenings with Clinique. So, Rent the Runway, GroupM, Seamless. You come from some technology-driven foundations,
Yes,
into, I'll call it a mature 55-year-old beauty brand. What stimulated that move?
Yeah, throughout my career, I've always gravitated to brands that were in a bit of a transition during kind of their brand journeys. So, at GroupM and Seamless, it was all about really creating a new category. This was before food delivery was at its peak of power, and it was changing consumer behavior. And when I joined Rent the Runway, it was pretty much the same. It was creating a new category, changing consumer behavior. And, Clinique is very much in the same point where it's in a very competitive industry. It's a heritage brand, and it's kind of reinventing its relevance to new consumers. And it's a really amazing challenge because this market is probably one of the most competitive categories and continues to grow on a daily basis. And, it is thinking about how do we cut through the noise and leverage that 55 years of experience in a modern lens.
And can't be an easy thing to not necessarily reinvent, but modernizing a brand.
Yeah, it's a lot about transformation, and thankfully the organization really supports this transformation right now, which is, for someone who has been on the business for 8 months, you come in and try to be disruptive, and sometimes that can be met with, well, that's not what we've done for the past 55 years. And I've experienced the exact opposite. It's really about how do we transform, how do we borrow from the past without planting too many roots in the past, and thinking about how to adapt that in a modern way. But it's really interesting. We often use the phrase like, what is old is new again, with a twist. So for example, Clinique has always been based on building relationships and always used the consumer and consultant at counter experience to build relationships and drive sales. And right now, we're doing that in different ways. And, what that means is we're leveraging creators as an extension of those consultants to kind of build those relationships. We are creating new tools with augmented reality. We have a tool called Clinical Reality that can do a scan of your face. It's based on 50 years of dermatology experience, 80 different data points on your face, and 2 million scans of consumers to kind of diagnose what's going on with your skin. And so that's like another relationship hook. So again, we're using like the same kind of foundation for how we build relationships, how we educate it, but we're choosing different channels to develop those relationships.
It's interesting. That's a phenomenal app and engagement with consumers, but it's also relinquishing some control, right? So
for sure.
it's taking it out of the hands. How are you leveraging those tools and those things, the digital world, to drive that encounter? Because you mentioned it's very symbiotic. So how do you use those to drive that in-store consultation and purchase?
Yeah, the consumer journey is actually pretty seamless. So what we've found successful right now is, we are putting paid support behind kind of consideration assets that talk about clinical reality. So, it's kind of a two-touch process. So one, we're driving kind of like, brand awareness ads that talk about Clinique, talk about it through like a modern lens. And then, the second touch is essentially like this consideration ad with our clinical reality tool. And what we're doing is we're driving people to experience where they can actually set up, after they've done their scan, an in-store consultation with a consultant.
Oh, fantastic.
Because I think, we're in an age where, you have diagnostic tools online, but they're not like maybe totally believable. And so I think because we like the consumer has this information online and that they can go in store to kind of verify it with a consultant and really understand what their needs are in a more thoughtful way is really helping us drive conversion.
Okay, excellent. And mentioned creators, and while you guys have your augmented reality, reality, and you have your tools, the creator environment obviously so important to today's, especially the coming up generations. They're getting their news, their information, their shopping, everything is via channels like TikTok. So as you get into that, how do you manage creators to make sure they're staying on a 55-year-old history, essence of that, and then second part of the question, getting into UGC, and how do you engage with consumers who are engaging with the brand online that aren't necessarily a creator that you've influenced?
For sure. I mean, that's as we think about how we engage with our community on social, it is really kind of like making the investments in creators that believe in the brand and having them be an extension of our team and really evangelize the brand. So we're really thoughtful. I think the most important piece of successful creator relationships is thoughtfully briefing the creators on the brand history, the product, the science, all of that. And so what we typically do with like long-term brand partner relationships, we bring them into our labs and we have them we work with a lot of derm creators, like I mentioned earlier, and we bring them into the lab and we let them kind of understand like in a deeper level our science with our PD and R&D people there. So, we want them to really understand that the science behind our products and the efficacy and like the clinical research that goes into our products. So like that's the type of level of effort that we put into it. And then from like a UGC and kind of like, exploring who's talking about us and kind of reaching out, it's really, we do, my team is consistently like mining for people who are kind of evangelists of the brand or people who have specific derm concerns that we can reach out to with product solutions. Because our portfolio is so big, it's kind of like we have a little something for everyone. So it allows us to, for example, if we're on TikTok and we see that winter skin concerns are trending, we can reach out to influencers and creators that are talking about those issues, and then we can quickly reach out to them with like product solutions on. And, I think the other thing that's really critical in building relationships, obviously I'm a big believer in building relationships. I think that, thinking about like a full funnel strategy makes sense, but we've seen pretty good success with reaching out to the community to get them to engage with the brand more so than, a paid ad does for us.
Fair. I'm sure the paid stuff still works.
The paid stuff, and like I like to be clear, like we need that investment, right? Mostly from just like a sheer, reach perspective. We need that. But like I think the integrated mix is really important. But in a world where creators are king and beauty brands are born and made on these platforms and truly born from and get to a viral fame from one creator that talks about the benefit of a single product is kind of the world that we're in right now. And we've really embraced that strategy.
Okay, good. And you made mention of the funnel, and it's kind of like it's either smashed or, kind of doesn't exist anymore, right. Especially in social channels, because they're on it so much, especially younger generations, but they're also in that vein, always shopping. They're always on, right? So, for a prestige brand, and you've got kind of branding and awareness, and then conversion, and that condensed funnel, kind of the art and science of performance and branding. How much do you leverage both, and how do you make sure that they're working together?
Yeah. So, if you were to ask me that question probably last year, I would have said we were like heavily investing in driving sales, really investing in kind of mid and lower funnel efforts, like very heavy paid social investment. But right now the Clinique brand is kind of going on a bit of a brand evolution journey, and not a complete repositioning effort, but actually kind of going back to our roots in dermatological science and really, being a kind of a derm-led brand. And right now the job to be done is telling that story at scale, because we have really high awareness, like, one of the highest awareness of any beauty brand. But the job to be done is consideration. And we're just not, we really driving that consideration. And, it's really interesting. We're seeing that specific products are big recruitment drivers that allow, consumers to be brought into the brands. And also we're seeing that like specific products are actually driving like the most specific, like retention, but also just like LTV, which we get really excited about from a younger consumer.
And you've made mention of, your loyalty numbers are through the roof. So, once you can get a consumer in to try a product or to spend time with a derm clinician, the conversion is great. And then the LTV, the loyalty stays.
Yes.
In this time of kind of that younger generation and the rise of dupes and things like that, how do you manage that? Obviously, quality is quality. But
it's interesting. It's very much a high-low mass prestige, like, integrated. You always have like an integrated mix of products within your beauty bag. And that's because like younger generations know more than ever before about skincare and beauty. And it allows them to make really informed decisions, no matter the product. They understand about ingredients and benefits and all of that. And so, while that's a challenge, what's really interesting is that the more that we communicate our brand story and our brand being based on dermatological science, high efficacy, we do a ton of clinical research, we can usually like convert them. But like I said before, when we're investing in kind of the funnel, a lot of like the brand awareness, brand storytelling is happening right now to kind of give them a stronger reason to believe, because we're up against the mass brands of the world. And, what is the point of differentiation? It's our brand and like our years of experience.
Yeah, like quality is quality. And, and consumers are smarter than ever. The rise of like even the Yuka app of, scanning barcodes and looking at ingredients. There's so much more knowledge out there, which is a good thing. I think it's leading to people caring about what they're putting on their skin, what they're putting in their bodies, things like that. What has you most excited, or I guess, what are you looking at from a media landscape perspective that has you the most excited going into 24?
Yeah. I think I think there's two things. I'll push the media question aside, but I think one thing that's getting me really excited is, really just thinking about like generative AI and how we can use that to our advantage to move faster. So the beauty industry, there is a TikTok trend born every day on the platform. Yeah. And being able to respond to that quickly while we're doing a good job, being able to like conceptualize new ideas, being able to develop new ads that are going to capitalize on those trends in a more agile way is what we're hoping, a lot of this work that we're exploring with like generative AI can do. Okay. Obviously, the twist there is still some craft that goes into maintaining a prestige beauty brand. There is still very much an art and science, and we want to ensure there's still a point of differentiation. But I'm really excited about that opportunity to really like scale up a lot of our trend kind of to action agility work right now, because a lot of it's like pretty manual, as you can imagine. And then, from a media perspective, I think one of the things that we're really excited about as a brand, and, it's complementary to kind of where we are in our brand trajectory, is really the role of partnerships and collaborations to get in front of new audiences. And so we are in the process of exploring kind of those relationships right now, both from a product development perspective, but also from just like a bigger content and kind of media partnership. We recently launched a partnership with Kate Spade, another kind of like 90s brand. And it was one of the biggest drivers of sales on our brand.com in the last like 3 months. So there's really something there in partnerships that gets me really excited that we haven't really explored fully in a long time.
It's an interesting balance for a brand with as much history as you guys have to, it's not a flash in the pan kind of latest celebrity influencer. It's staying true to you, but connecting with consumers and
the other thing I'll say that I'm also like I've been doing a lot of just thinking around the proliferation of like experts online, between creators that have very strong opinions, between the derm creators that are online. It's just a lot of noise and a lot of information. Yeah. And, recently I was reading an article from the heads of one of like big agency, and they were talking about using AI to basically like sift through the most credible experts and be able to present that to consumers. And I think that would be a massive game changer because as a consumer, it's just information overload,
For
right?
Sure.
And I think what's really interesting too is I think while like Gen Alpha is inspired by creators, they also all want to be creators themselves. Like they're already there, right? Even more so than millennials. They want to be creators. I think kind of what we know is that a lot of them are doing their purchases in stores. So I think there's like an opportunity for the Clinique brand in particular to be able to go in and like further educate and clarify like a lot of the information, or maybe misinformation that they receive on a daily basis. But I think this like leveraging AI to be able to like refine the most credible sources is really interesting.
That's great. And I've got a couple teenage boys, and they, what they see and what they read and what they trust is hard to validate. And
it's really hard to validate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've been intrigued as you've been talking. Clinique is a 55-year-old brand. Estée Lauder is 75-ish year old organization, but you're talking about generative AI, you're talking about TikTok, all the social channels, creators, things like that. How has that been corporately as you come in and disrupt in your role? You mentioned that they've been very supportive, more so than you even thought. But how much have you had to kind of push through to get those changes?
I think that it is because it's such a big brand. It's like, moving kind of the Mayflowers. So just like it's a big brand. It's demonstrating kind of quick wins for them to believe in kind of like new ideas and new technology. I'll give you an example. So, I think some brands have been successful of standing up TikTok Shop. I don't think quite the live shopping piece of that. I don't know if we're not totally there from a Western perspective. Right. My partners in China at Douyin are like just crushing it. Yeah. I'm like so amazed. It's like a whole other world. It's like QVC ramped up. And, because we're starting to really grow in TikTok, we're building a community, we're seeing EMV rise. We've decided to obviously invest in TikTok Shop, mostly through creative affiliate play. Okay. And there's a lot of other channels that like we spend our energy in, obviously our like own D2C and obviously our retail partners, but convincing the organization to really stand that up and put resources against it, we had to show that we were making a case for like growth on our own channel to do that.
And you mentioned APAC, and we're mobile platform based in APAC. So we kind of see a lot of those trends, and it's like, how do we get the US, how do we bring it over? Yeah. And some of it translates, some of it doesn't. Live shopping is a perfect example. It's everything over there, and everything operates on the mobile device over there. How do you test and learn bringing some of those innovations over here?
Yeah, like I said before in the earlier interview, while I have a global role and we set a global strategy, we're a really collaborative organization. And we create kind of these like idea flywheels where if we see something in a region that's really interesting, and it's like, it could be specific to that region, but it really could be specific to just like a consumer truth that we're like, we need to reverse engineer that and scale that up. And we've seen that, to be pretty successful in other regions where there's like an interesting beauty insight, like in the East, that we know eventually is going to come West. And we've started to kind of like test that through greater partnerships. Like there's a trend called like skin cycling that like was very popular in the East, and we've leveraged that trend with a couple of creators just to see whether or not it would resonate in the States. And so it's like being able to kind of do that in like a more agile way with not a ton of investment to show proof of concept, and eventually it becomes a bigger investment opportunity. Somewhat
of the blessing and curse of social. You can test quicker, you can test smaller. All right. And kind of wrapping us up here a little bit, but what do you have on the docket for 24 that is exciting that we should be on the lookout for?
There is a lot of goodness coming out of the Clinique brand. I mentioned that, we're a brand based on the, dermatological science and really deep expertise with derms. We're going to continue to flex that muscle in 2024. We think it's a massive opportunity because the category is so focused on skincare brands with like deep expertise and clinical research and all of that. So from a brand level, we'll continue to tell that story. I talked a lot about TikTok, but it's not a silver bullet. We have a lot of other amazing partners at Meta and Pinterest and Reddit, and we're thinking about how do we like exploit those channels more fully. I'm excited about the potential of Pinterest, actually, because when you think about skincare and makeup, it's very seasonal and occasion focused, and we've experienced like quick wins on that platform.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, and you probably know this, but like Pinterest is also like one of the top search platform like in specific regions. So there's like a ton of untapped opportunity there. So we're going to continue to kind of experiment in those channels, and then we have a lot of exciting new product launches coming out. And like I said before, we are working on reimagining on our go-to-market strategies for those products, like very much leading and earned as we think a big growth lever for the business.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jess. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights with the group. And good luck. Best of luck to you in 2024.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.